Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. Let's start off with Marshall for a minute. So he tells Curtis his diagnosis and why he left. And, I'm going to be completely honest. It's not really working for me. It's not working for me at all. I understand why he left. But what I don't understand is to go to such extremes of telling his sons that their dad is dead. I feel like that might have been a bit much. Um, it just doesn't work. It really doesn't work. And I get that at the time it was, I guess, relatively still new. They were working on the dosage. They don't, he didn't know if it was going to be better or worse. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't trust it really. He didn't know if it was going to be a short fix and maybe it stopped working. And I can understand his fears to a certain extent. But like the whole faking the death thing, I still feel like that went too far. And when Curtis was like, all right, I understand why you left, but that was years ago. Why are you just coming back now? And I'm like, you know what? That's a very good answer. Marshall, please do us the favor in answering this question, why? Because your answer should be mind blowing. Okay? It should make me be glad that I'm sitting my ass down for that. Marshall's answer was, I stayed away for a while. I always kept a watchful eye on you. And when you decided to, you know, build the club, music club, it was a sign from God. You, you're telling me that you kept a watchful eye on him. His ups and downs, his triumphs, his defeats, and all that. And you felt that it was a good enough time to come back because he made a music club. I get that soap operas tend to not always follow, it's fantasy, okay? And I can get behind fantasy. Trust me, I can get behind fantasy. There's fantasy, and then there's whatever the hell is that I just saw. I don't know what I just saw. They all did a nice good group hug, and Stella was tearing up. And it was a nice good moment of everyone just hugging it out, and Curtis just being like, "All right, cool. I can totally accept that answer. Let's just move forward." All right, I'm just gonna I feel like if I just stay stuck on that, I might just lose it. I could have did without the whole Drew and Carly thing. I really could have. I mean, I felt like it was just filler. I mean, Carly is feeling guilty about lying to Drew, and she talks about buying into some ELQ shares, and Drew is all like he doesn't feel like a Quartermain, and I don't know. I like I said, I felt like this was kind of filler. Um, they did sit there and talk. Carly did sit there and say, she reminds him more of Lila. I thought that was nice. Um, I still remember that funeral, and it just like when she said about the whole Lila thing, it just kind of hit me a little bit. Um, because even in that episode, like way back then when he had the funeral for her, it didn't feel like it was really acting. Besides that, they didn't really go too much of anywhere else, and again, I felt like it was just kind of pointless. So, let's see. Let's talk about Sonny for a minute. And it's something I want to sit there and talk about Sonny. When I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was kind of kicking myself because I didn't really get my thoughts out or my new thoughts out about Sonny. So here's the thing. And I was talking about this with DC Soap Sanctuary about Sonny and his mood and his changing of personality and how people don't like the new Sonny. They don't like the new Sonny. They don't like the decisions that they're making. And while I'll just say this, I feel like soap operas in some sort of way is kind of a reflection on life a little bit as far as character development. And sometimes with people, they change for the best, they change for the worse. Okay, things that Sonny has been doing has just been not on brand. But I also look at it and it's like, well, you know what? People aren't the same. People are constantly there saying, well, this isn't the stuff that Sonny would normally do. This is the stuff that Sonny would sit there and act like. And I'm like, well, you know what? I didn't act like the way I act now isn't the same way I acted 5 years ago. You know? And I just feel like, while I understand that people got their issues with Sonny, and trust me, I'm a Sonny fan, and there's a lot of times where he does things, I'm just like, bro, I can't co-sign that. You know? I do like to sit there and keep in mind that with these soap opera characters, to some extent, they're a reflection on life. There's 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, it's always a new episode, and characters always seem that they're changing for the better or the worse. And I feel like Sonny is just a product of the times in the sense of, who he was back then isn't the same person who he is now. And I guess that's called character development, for the better or the worse. Um, Now going into Sonny today, we got Temp Brando. Okay, I call him Temp Brando, but let's tell you, he did a good job as far as being Brando. Um, Sonny is still reeling from the testimony from the further, as far as like him being further away from his family, further away from Michael, the tension and the fact that it seems like it's just getting a lot worse. And it is getting a lot worse. So Dax come in. I was like, hey, I remember you. Took a couple of cycles to get to you, but all right, bro, what you got? And Dax is like, yo, listen, we got some problems. Long story short, somebody is sitting there cutting into his coffee business, making it where people don't want to work with him so much, and I guess one of the people that normally checks in Sonny's shipments or whatever just kind of let things slide. Well, that dude got fired, and after thinking about it for a hot minute, Sonny was like, okay, cool, um, I know exactly who's behind this. But Dax is like, listen, what can I do to get to the bottom of this? So, Sonny's like, listen, just go and look into it, investigate, do what you got to do. Now, before the episode ends, you see Brando Smith here looking at Dax because I guess he like lift up his shirt for something. He saw a gun there. I'm like, that really shouldn't be too surprising. That Sonny's men, they got fired. But you see Dax talk to Michael because he already knew. I guess he found out or whatever through different channels, and so he approaches Michael. Now, if you saw the previews, not just the previews for the next episode, which is tomorrow, but I mean the previews, that they were doing, that Dax most likely had a conversation with Michael, and Sonny was not too happy. I believe the words were, "I'll kill you if you ever go near one of my kids again," or something like that. So I don't understand on what planet did Dax think that approaching Michael in any sort of way would end well with Sonny. I feel like at this point, Dax is a mole. He did bring out, no, he didn't. But I feel like Dax is a mole. Probably for Miss Woman. I'm assuming. Maybe. Um, but I feel like that's the case. I feel like, because at this point, bro, I know that you're a rookie on the job, but if you know his last name is Corinthos, why would you be sitting there just walking up to him like that? So yeah, Michael's going to war. I don't know how Christina would sit there and feel about that. But also, we haven't sit there and seen her in a hot minute, so I guess we'll just have to sit there and just guess. Speaking of Michael, Michael comes over to Ned with some sort of gift or whatever, and he pretty much kind of lays the deal out on the table again. What do you want? And Ned is like, I want equal partnership. Because, at this point, the the CEO position is just not going to happen. So he's like, all right, cool. How about we'll just all be equals? And, Michael more or less, I mean, honestly, Drew was like, I don't really know about that. I'll talk to Drew and see what he says. But I don't know about that. And at this point, Ned is just fed up. He looks at his phone, he sees Valentine, and we all know where this is going. Um, I look at this whole thing, and I mean, I can see faults in both of them. I can see Nat not wanting to compromise, but I can also see the fact that Michael and Drew have been doing all these meetings and discussing and stuff like that behind Ned's back. Um, and Ned does feel like he's being pushed out. He has a valid right to sit there and feel like that. He spent his entire, he's had a lifetime working at ELQ. And the fact that he was just saying, "Oh, I've been sitting there doing this since I was changing your diapers or whatever," it was like, you can clearly see that there's a bit of hostility there as far as, taking orders from Michael, being the fact that he's way older than him. So we all know where that's gonna wind up going. Now let's talk about Britt's intervention for a minute. So Britt is hungover as hell, and Brad and old Britt come in there and they're like, "Yo, listen, we gotta, girl, we gotta get you straight. You've been, as Olbrich said, flailing." Now, of course, at this point, Olbrich brings up the fact that, she made a spectacle out of herself with, as far as being at the, during that whole matchmaking thing. And she says, I quote, "You've become a meme." Now, Brad was the one that took the video, and I'm like, well, why would you do that for? And he was all like, oh, well, I want to sit there and show you when you're at your lowest point or whatever. And I'm like, and you put that online though? Like, what the hell? Um, Long story short, after Brad leaves, this thing it all comes back down to Jason. Okay, this all comes back down to Jason and the fact that she couldn't really find anyone that had the qualifications as Jason. Now, a lot of people, and not just again, not just in my comment section, but just in general, a lot of people have been coming at Britt with this whole, you know, girl, you known Jason for like maybe a month and a half, maybe at best. The fact that she was so head over heels with him, and he was the only person that can ever sit there and match up. It's just, well, it's ridiculous, you know. And when Olbrich was like, "Listen, you had like a year to sit there and process that, like a whole year to sit there and process that. What are you doing?" My first thought was therapy, because at this point, Britt is never going to sit there and move on from Jason. Britt is never going to move on from Jason, and then there's the whole Huntington disease. She's dealing with that, her mortality, and Jason. I don't really understand. Now that I sit there and think about it, I don't really understand what Brad and Olbrich thought that they were going to sit there and do. I mean, other than sit there and say, girl, you need to sit there and go to therapy. Because all they did was kind of throw a lot of the things that she's been doing in her face. Oh, you've been acting all wild and everything like that. You were wilding out, with your speech at the pool and everything. And I'm like, yo, granted, she got knocked into the pool while nobody sat there and tried to help her out the pool. And you uploaded online. Like, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with Britt's character. I mean, don't get me wrong, I from a psychological point, from a character development point, I I don't want to sit there and say I do like the fact that Britt is going through a lot of this turmoil and this grief and everything like that. But I feel like she hasn't been doing anything like, honestly, to tell you the truth. Besides that whole pool thing, she hasn't really been doing too much of anything else. She's just been working or I guess hiding out. But I don't know. I don't know. I feel like at this point I'm like, girl, just go to therapy, do something, because I get that trying to throw herself back into the dating world when she's still hung up on somebody else. Regardless of how everyone is sitting there saying it's been like a week, been like a month and a half. You've been out with Jason, regardless. But the dating thing isn't working. You need to try something. Um, but I feel like at this point they're probably gonna sit there and hook her up with Cody, because I mean the dude literally dropped from the sky from for her, more or less. I think that's about it. I gotta sit there and say it was a little odd. They usually just throw in a bunch of more characters into this show, which is usually just like, okay, sure, whatever. But honestly, to tell you the truth, this episode didn't really seem like it had that many characters. I'm looking at my notes and it's one page and it's usually two. So um, I don't know. Like I guess mostly also the Drew and Carly stuff was just like, didn't really go too much of anywhere. So there was that. But I feel like that's about it. I really do. I feel like that's about it. So with that being said, I'm gonna go. I want to thank you for watching. Be safe. Let me know your thoughts on in the comment section below. See you in the next video.